so we've created this document called The Mission. It's 12 pages long, and we talk about the things she needs to do technically and mentally, and we keep it super real. Like, there's parts of it that speak about there's going to be times of self-doubt, because it just is part of life. It's part of life. So you can't ignore that and just be like positive all the time and ignore that stuff or fight it. It's better just to embrace it, right? Mm-hmm. And like, okay, I've had some self-doubt at the moment. Let's talk through this, or I can work through that, So we've got this 12-page mission, and it addresses all of her sort of idiosyncrasies, or all of her whatever we need to address. Schedules, competition schedules, training schedules, what she's going to do at these training camps, volume at these training camps, volume of what technically she's going to work on with her jumps, with her skiing, and then it's awesome. I mean, it's awesome. We've just built this out sort of fairly organically, and she's all in, and she also, like, I wrote a mantra, a base mantra, and then I let her modify it. So at the beginning of every training session that we have, or every time I speak to her, or before she goes on the hill, or before she goes to go water jump or whatever, she says the mantra. And it's like short, so it's succinct, and she can get it done quickly. It's, 30 seconds, but it's awesome. So those are the details, man. Those are the details, that's that's the stuff that, and you never know, but you've got to give yourself the best shot you can. You've got to give yourself the best shot you can.
Welcome back to the Yogi Triathlete Podcast. This is the place where we share stories of people looking, finding, and living their purpose. Purpose in the sense of dharma, to be in truth with our dreams and reasons for being on this earth. This life is a rich itinerary, one that we believe is meant to be lived with wild abandon. However, that is relative to each individual. And I think our guest today has done that so well for himself. Bobby Aldighieri is a former professional mogul skier, Olympic athlete, and two-time Olympic coach. He competed in the 1992 Olympic Games in Albertville, France, which was the first year mogul skiing was included in the Games. He was a member of the national ski team for 7 years, achieving a top 5 world ranking. He was on the professional ski tour for 3 years and was the first mogul skier in history to win a World Cup and pro event. Bobby was head coach for the Canadian Freestyle team and helped them earn a gold medal in Torino, Italy in 2006. He has coached many athletes to their prospective national team and to the Olympics, including national champions, world championship medalists, and Olympic medalists. Most recently, Bobby has made perhaps his biggest career decision yet in choosing to step down from his position as freestyle program director for the Steamboat Springs Winter Sports Club to pursue the next phase of life. We're excited to dive into this guy's extensive experience and learn from him as we hold the intent that you will walk away with a few takeaways to better go after your dreams today. Bobby, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. That was quite an intro. You're a total pro, by the way.
Yeah, I'm a total pro. Learn from the best. I've been hanging out with professional athletes for quite some time, as you know.
That's awesome.
What I didn't mention in that intro is that we've known each other for a long time. Beach said 2 decades.
I want to say it's 2 decades, 20 years.
It's a long time. It's before Beach and I were married.
Yeah, no.
So long time.
Yeah, at least 20 years. That's right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so, it's so interesting. I was reflecting on this. I don't think that life there's no mistakes, right? And so they always say, like, hindsight is 20/20, right? You can see so much clearer the path that it took you to get where you are, right? When you can turn around and actually see it. And so I look back on those days and I remember, hanging out with you, like you were kind of the first Olympian I knew, and Chuck, and, like, whoa, that's another Olympian, and KB. And then hanging out, I remember like having dinner with the Canadian team and just thinking like, oh my God, this is so amazing. And oh my God, they're just normal. They're just kids, like, doing something amazing. And it's so funny to look at our life now. We're talking to Olympians, high performance coaches, and professional athletes is what we do on a daily basis. And so I kind of see you as like a seed that was planted in a dream that has come true.
It's interesting. I never thought about that. Yeah, I never thought. Yeah, that's true. It's come kind of full circle for you guys. Yeah, it's amazing. You talk about these young kids and Olympians, and they're just regular people. And I think you're right in many ways. And I think there's certain things that separate those kind of people, Olympians or world champions, from others. And I guess that's kind of what we're going to talk about today. But
keep going with that.
I think there's just some fundamentals, like you talk about. There's no wrong choices. Or I think people give lip service, a lot of lip service to learning from their mistakes. And I think that there's two ways to go about that. Making mistakes, you're absolutely right, I think is imperative. It's the only way, really. If we're open-minded and if we're learned, and if we can put our ego aside, then we're going to learn from our mistakes. But if we don't, then we're going to repeat those mistakes over and over and over. And you see plenty of that. I've seen athletes do that. Like literally, I've seen athletes fool themselves for a career and not really learn from their mistakes. So, even within like the national ski team that I was on or that I coached, there's different levels. You'd be shocked maybe the levels, even within that group. People that are really, really good and high performing and really thoughtful about the moment to moment, and then people that aren't so much. So it's interesting. But I think that making mistakes, if you're on the sharp end of it, making mistakes is a really, really good thing. If you're learning from them, and also makes you a little less judgmental too about others that are making mistakes, So
that high level that you were talking about, the thread that you've seen that level, learning from that, like taking that and using that as a building block to get better and better.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. When I'm coaching, I think I was saying this to you the other day, BJ, but when I'm coaching athletes, I rarely tell them the things that I did well as an athlete. I'm usually telling them the things I didn't do well. Because then they can learn, from my mistakes, and they can take it in and go, oh yeah, well, he reached a pretty high level. So, with these mistakes. So if I can reach it, my goal is ultimately when I coach my athletes is to have them be, better than I was, right? Mm-hmm. And so it's important to sort of shed the light on what you didn't do well. I don't know where we're going with that.
Do you feel, let's look at you, in your career, did you feel struggle at times that you were repeating the same thing? Like, did you feel that at first and then was able to shift to like, okay, I've learned it once, I need to move on? Or did you have a coach that sort of directed you?
Yeah, I think one of my weaknesses as an athlete is I was really emotional about stuff in general. I was really too emotional about not doing, not having, especially earlier in my career before I really started to hit my stride. I mean, I was just really emotional if I didn't have good results, and I'd be miserable, and I'd be like, after the event, I'd be in my room, and then, I couldn't wait for the next training day for the next World Cup. We'd have to travel from Germany to Austria to Switzerland or Italy or wherever. I'd be like, oh my God, and that was like not good. That was not good. I think to be, you can be emotional in the moment and let positive emotion drive you and all that. And I did a good job of that as well. I was really romantic about the process all the time. Like growing up in the East Coast and skiing in Killington, Vermont, I was out there. Whatever I didn't have in talent, I absolutely made up in work ethic. And, people, that's another thing people give lip service to is, oh, I work hard. Not everyone works as hard, as other people. That's just a fact. And then there's you can work hard physically. You can work hard, in the gym. You can work hard on the ski hill. You can work hard mentally. You can work hard emotionally. There's a lot of ways to be able to be disciplined. And so, but yeah, I was there was times I was just too emotional about the losses, and not learning from them, not just being more cold about it. Okay, well, I did this well. I didn't do this well. I'm going to fix this next week. Boom, period. Let it go, I was super invested in it, immensely invested, it was like all I wanted to do since I was a little kid. So, I feel very fortunate to have had the opportunity and have lived, become top 5 in the world and ski at the Olympics and et cetera, and to have had that passion. I mean, we know in our lives, not everybody has that. Not everyone finds that passion. You guys blatantly have. You guys sacrificed a lot and just followed that, kind of blindly, right? It's going to work out. So it's the same thing as an athlete. Like, not like when you're a kid, you like dream about going to the Olympics, but the amount of people that go to the Olympics is few and far between. It's like, it's like winning the lotto almost, sort of, you have more control over it. But
do you feel the frustration, that piece of the frustration is that, in maybe your case and with your athletes, like they feel they should be further along than they are right now. Mm. So you don't do the qualification at that race and you get frustrated, you go inside, you beat yourself up. You're like, is this ever going to work? Self-doubt creeps in. Then you're like, okay, well now there's another race. So I guess they want the thing to be speed track, like I want to get there now. I want to qualify for the Olympics now. And for some people that works, but for most of us, I think it takes time and energy, a lot of it.
Yeah, no, for sure. Like you're right. You're spot on. The major majority of people, it's a grind. It's a grind, and you're not going to be there tomorrow. It's just not. It just takes time. And in aerobic sport especially, there's no replacement for the miles and the base miles and it's just a grind. Like aerobic sports, just a grind. It's like Nordic skiing, right? It's like cross country skiing versus whatever. But for most sports for sure.
So it sounds like you were, like the emotional, it's like really attached, right? So I bet the lows were really painful and the highs were super high. Do you feel like you just grew out of that? Was there a turning point where maybe you started to master a little more calm or patience in your process? Or do you feel like to the end of your career, you were pretty tied in, pretty emotional about the waves of, the highs and the lows?
I think I became less frustrated with myself. Yeah, as time went on, I became less frustrated with myself and just more determined. Just let that stuff motivate me versus deflate me. And it wasn't like I wasn't like depressed. Like I don't know. I mean, I was definitely down and mad at myself, but I would just kind of turn that around just to let it motivate me. And over time, and there's no athlete's career is perfect and smooth. And you look at, just because I know skiing pretty intimately, you look at Lindsey Vonn, she had, a significant amount of self-doubt a lot of the time, which is like crazy because she's the most winning female alpine skier in the history of the sport. And then Michaela Schifrin's sort of been the same way to some degree. I don't know to what degree, I can't say, but so, so you've got to like battle that stuff. And BJ, you spoke about self-doubt, and for sure there's moments of self-doubt, but that's where like you can work, physically strong. And I was really good at all the physical, being in the gym and being on the hill. But then there's the mental emotional side, which is, equally as important, if not more. And that's where I think that's really where the rubber hits the road. But for me, I just became more determined and a little less tough on myself, beating myself up, but just like, more confident over time. You build up, your world ranking goes up, you start to, evidence. Get more confidence,
Yeah, well, momentum, right?
Momentum.
So you're putting in all this work, right? This is how momentum works. You're putting in all this work. You're at the gym, regardless of the emotions that you're having, you're showing up every day to keep moving yourself forward. Then this is the best part. Like you start getting evidence of that work. You start, doing better at events. You start moving up in the rankings. You know, like the Olympics is something that is within your wheelhouse, right? Like something that you can look at. And so, momentum. Yeah. What, do you want to talk a little bit about momentum?
Yeah.
I think it's huge because, you know, it takes a lot to get it going, as I know you saw in your own career, but it doesn't take much to drop it all. And
then build momentum the other way. Now you're building momentum in like not doing anything or moving away from your potential. So how, I don't know how to ask this, but momentum is such a pivotal piece in achieving what you want to achieve.
I think it allows for some ease too. Like when you've got momentum, you have to keep showing up. But I feel like there's an ease that's there because now you've got a little bit of evidence like, okay, I'm going to keep going. It gets easier because of that.
Absolutely. Yeah. But you're right. You've got to pay the dues and you've got to show up. But you know, you can't just athletes show up and go through the motions too. You know, you can't you're either going practicing good muscle memory and it's things going up, or I've seen athletes get worse as the year has gone on because they literally have been going through the motions and their body position, their hand position, their footwork gets worse because they're not doing they're just kind of there half-heartedly or not really thinking about it. And so that effort, the physical effort, but the mental effort, you know, I'm sure there's parts of running technique that are, it could be just so many sports. It's not like, oh, just let your body, you know, it's like all this stuff is counterintuitive. All these movements tend to be counterintuitive. Certainly in skiing they are, you know. You can't just go out and learn to ski by yourself without a coach and be great. It's not going to happen because the technique is too nuanced. And I suspect it's the same there's plenty of that in your guys' arena as well. And so, it's, you know, but it's important. Yeah, but you can build momentum, but you've got to be on the sharp end of it every single day and show up and be present and have a goal for that day, whether you're going to, you know, hand position or wrist position or where your center's going to be over your toes or speed of absorption, depth of absorption. I could go on and on and on about that stuff.
Yeah, and I think to expand upon what BJ was saying, that moment, we're always creating momentum. We are always creating momentum because we're always making choices. We're always taking action. We're, you know, even if that's just lying on the couch when we're supposed to be going out for a run, now we're creating momentum.
Right.
So we want to be aware, athletes, I would think, want to be very aware of what direction that momentum is going in any given moment, you know?
Is it going in a good way or a bad way is what you're saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, it's huge. It's huge, yeah. And that's the difference between, you know, there's all shades of gray. You think about great athletes and then, you know, okay athletes or good athletes. Just even between good and great. There's a lot, you know, in my experience, and I'm super picky about this stuff, you know, I'm you know, ad nauseum, you know, just, you know, so picky about the details, but it's the great ones that really are fanatic about the details, you know.
So your work ethic's strong, super passionate. I mean, I know you personally. I've mountain biked with you. I've ridden on the back of your motorcycle. We've done a lot of activities together.
Forgot about that.
And everything you do, you're just amazing at, right? It's just you have this drive. Well, from my eyes, most of what I've seen you attempt, you've done so well. And I think it's that drive, this excellence that you have. I think it's in your DNA. You've got this excellence.
Dude, I have a lot of shortcomings, but energy and persistence aren't.
Yeah, well, and that's those are two really important things that it takes. And so I guess my question is, as a coach, when you weren't seeing those standards that you hold, I know your standards are high, how are you showing up as a coach for these athletes that are, you know, nobody's doing this because they're not in pain, right? If they're falling off or they're moving away from their dreams and you see it, it's a car crash in slow motion, how do you hold that space for them?
I wasn't good at that. At the beginning, I wasn't good at that. when I coached a national team, we had, it's a really good question.
I love your short answer. I wasn't good at that.
Yeah, well, I wasn't, because I just expected all those guys just to be full on. And we had some older people on the team that didn't believe they could be world champions. And then we had some young people on the team, and those older people kind of trying to sabotage those younger people because they knew they were going to be really good. So that was like, yeah. But the people that didn't want to really be there or didn't really want to train hard, it infuriated me, you know? And a lot of it is because, and I would tell them, I'm like, because they're better than they think they are and they should believe in themselves more. But you have to realize that in a team sport, well, it's not a team sport. Mogul skiing is an individual sport, but it's a team, right? It's a national team. So you're going to have people on that team that are just citizens, right? But as long as they're not distracting the other group and they're not a negative impact to the group, then they're fine. Everyone has a role to play, you know? That's really important. And then you've got your more like superstar people, and those people will kind of bolster them a little bit. And but it was a tough one, because when I first came on, it was not like a super great group, and some of those people were negative, and I was really paranoid about them spreading negativity and spreading that kind of bad vibe throughout the rest of the team. That said, so that's sort of okay for me to be sort of worried about that, but I probably could have done a better job of working with those people to make their lives a little bit better, and subsequently they might not be so, you know.
That's like, that's a big surrender of, well, two things. First, it's a big surrender of your ego, right? To be like, now I have to support them, you know, they're negative.
Yeah.
And then, I should never say two things because I can never remember the second one. Yeah, let's just stay with that it's, you know, it's a surrender of the ego. You as a coach being in this high level role as their guide, and they're spreading the negativity, and here you are trying to learn how to support them so their life can be a little better, so maybe they won't be so negative. But on their end, that negativity and that paranoia, that's also ego. So there's a lot of ego in that high level sport. And I think would you agree you need that ego to compete at the top level? But how have you seen, or how have you experienced, you know, getting that ego in check when it's just not serving either yourself, your dreams, or the collective of the team?
Yeah, I think if you really look at the very best athletes, they've got that pretty in check. They've got their ego pretty in check, you know, most of the time, not all the time. Sometimes these, you know, athletes can really run on super, super high ego, and they're, depending on the sport, I think too, you know, like how physical the sport is versus how mental the sport is. Some sports just take more mental fortitude. Golf, for instance, is like a significant amount of mental fortitude, right? Maybe, you know, you could say the same about tennis. You know, I mean, you've got to sort of, you know, there's plenty of other sports too. I'm just picking those two, so I'm familiar with them. It's like different than, you know, if you're a lineman listening to this, maybe you'd disagree, but to me, it's just, you know, being a lineman in the NFL, maybe there's not quite as mental, you know, it's not as mental as golf, you know. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? So, but I think, I digressed. So, yeah, I think that, but I think some of the great ones really have their ego in check, and they're just, you know, and this is something I was good at, but, you know, just doing it, like you look at, you know, Jordan or Gretzky, or, you know, these guys just do it out of the love, just passion and love of it, and really they're sort of being great, or being, I should say, being popular is not really super important to them, you know? That's just a byproduct. It's maybe good or not good, you know, for them. Maybe some people don't like that spotlight at all, or, you know, become exhausted by it. But I think, yeah, most of the great ones have their ego, you know, pretty in check. Yeah. If you look at like that Netflix video, The Last Dance, you know, the Bulls, that whole thing in the Bulls, like, look at Rodman. I mean, Dennis Rodman was like, how, like managing that guy, amazing, right? Like managing him, I'd have like lost my mind. And have you guys seen that video?
Yeah,
but he was like in Vegas and like,
going back to your point though, he was that one piece at that time that made the collective
totally
work, even though he was like on the perimeter of sanity,
Yeah, it was awesome. I mean, big hard work. I mean, I don't know what his work ethic was when he was, in practice, but he was the best rebounder in the NBA for numerous years, and he was just, it was awesome. I mean, it's awesome. So there's always, there are all these lessons to be learned, Jess. All these lessons to be learned as an athlete or as a coach, or I'm around that level so much. I'm like, I'm around World Cup athletes. I'm like,
Well, it gets normalized, right? Like a bunch of triathletes talking about Ironman, like I'm doing 5. Like that's shouldn't normal, like that's not a shock. Like you're doing 5 Ironmans in a year. Oh my God, that's amazing. Yeah. But things get normalized.
Pulling on the thread of why are details so important? Like we talked about this, I think, on our call too. Why are they so important to you? Have you gone through things not being detail oriented and learned from that, or what's the importance of it?
So I think just one sec on that, but I just think passion really drives it. Passion is going to drive all of what we're talking about, give or take, and just love for it and romance about it. And that's something that I've just always been like just hyper romantic about the whole process. Like I was saying, like going out and skiing in the freezing cold in Killington, or like it's pouring rain, or that stuff just never really bothered me. Just people don't want to go out in that, but just never really bothered me. So just FYI on that. So details. So I think when I was skiing, there just weren't as many details. There just wasn't as much sports science. Our coaches weren't as detail oriented, and it wasn't because I think they did a great job. I was really lucky, purely luck, to have good coaches when I was at the ski academy in Killington, at Killington Mountain School. So I had good coaches. You can have good coaches and not such good coaches, and you happen to just be in that program. But I was really fortunate. I was with my old coach, Park Smalley, since 7th grade last night. It was awesome. It was awesome. We were, I've known that guy since 7th grade, and he was a huge part of my career. And then when I was at Killington Mountain School, I had great coaches. So, but they just didn't have a lot of detail back then. And then as the sport has progressed and the sports world in general has progressed, there's been, there's more detail that can make you better, right? So some people that aren't really sophisticated in their approach just ignore that detail, or just choose not to utilize what's available. Like what's the best. Like you have to ask yourself as an athlete, as if you want to be a world-class athlete or not, maybe just even a recreational athlete, but you want to be your best. Like what are best practices out there? And what are you have to just ask someone who's really knowledgeable. You've got to be able to sort of know who you're talking to and how experienced they are and what their background is. But then you should be like, okay, what are best practices? Like not just in your town, or not just in your county, or not just in your state or your country, but worldwide, what are the best practices? What are the best people doing? And I was, and so now, as time has gone on, I'm just so stimulated by what, you can do that and that'll make you better. Oh, what? And this stuff is coming at me, and I'm like, oh, we can implement that, and make these guys and these girls so good. So that, that just really turns me on. So I've always been pretty detail oriented, but there's just more details to and then next sort of naturally, because I've been in the thing for so long, I kind of decide you can't do everything, but you can decide what's most imperative, what's really most important to get, some stuff. Yeah, you just can't do everything. And so you've got to decide, you've got to be a good judge of what's important, what's not important, and then go with that technology, those details, et cetera. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, for sure. Because you've talked about it before in our calls, and I feel like we can get obsessed with it too. We can get obsessed with details so that they even like trump where you're actually going with your goal. That you get so involved in like, I need to have these types of sneakers, and I need to have, this kind of shorts. So I think it's your relationship to all this information and what information the coach deems as, we're going to focus on this and use this to the best of its abilities. And when it no longer serves us, we'll move on to the next piece of information.
The coach has to keep it super real about that stuff. Like you have to have an experienced coach that's going to keep it super real and go like, well, what kind of shoes or what kind of shorts? Like, I don't know. I doubt that's going to make anyone any faster. I don't know that much about your sport, but I doubt there's really, too much, maybe shoes, but once you're in the same genre of shoes, whatever. But yeah, I think the coach has to keep it really real about that stuff and really be able to know that athlete well. Don't worry about that. Don't worry about that. Worry about this stuff. Like have a priority list. And that stuff at the bottom will probably never going to, I'm coaching this young lady. I'm advising her. Her name is Olivia Giacchio, and she's on the U.S. team, and I've coached her since she was quite young. And she's always been really serious, and she reminds me of like a smarter version of me when I was her age. She's like, she's going to Columbia, online, and she's just bright, and she's really ambitious, and she's really detail oriented, and she struggles a little bit on the competitive side. She's been kind of 10th in the world, 11th in the world, 10th in the world, and then she was injured, and she's coming back, and she had a pretty good year last year, and she's trying to qualify for the Olympics this year. And she's like a total pleasure to work with because she's on every detail. And I think I'm going off on a tangent, but I think this is worth digressing for. And so we've created this document called The Mission. And it's 12 pages long. And we talk about the things she needs to do technically and mentally. And there's going to be like, there's parts of it, we keep it super real. Like there's parts of it that speak about there's going to be times of self-doubt and because it just is part of life. It's part of life. So you can't ignore that and just be like positive all the time and ignore that stuff or fight it. It's better just to embrace it, right? Mm-hmm. And like, okay, I've had some self-doubt at the moment. Let's talk through this, or I can work through that, And so we've got this 12-page mission, and it addresses all of her sort of idiosyncrasies or all of her whatever we need to address. Schedules, competition schedules, training schedules, what she's going to do at these training camps, volume at these training camps, volume of what technically she's going to work on with her jumps, with her skiing, and then it's awesome. I mean, it's awesome. We've just built this out sort of fairly organically, and she's all in, and then we also I wrote a mantra, a base mantra, and then I let her modify it. So at the beginning of every training session that we have, or every time I speak to her, or before she goes on the hill, or before she goes to go water jump or whatever, she says the mantra. And it's like short, so it's succinct, and she can get it done quickly. It's, 30 seconds, but it's awesome. So... So those are the details, man. Those are the details, That's that's the stuff that, and you never know, but you've got to give yourself the best shot you can. You've got to give yourself the best shot you can.
And there's so much these days that can give you more of a shot as far as getting information. Like, I bet the skiers wear like heart rate monitors and things like that.
Oh, yeah.
And you probably didn't have any of that stuff.
No.
So
the recovery and
all the recovery. Let's dig into your career, like your background in your career. You grew up in Jersey, so
through 5th grade.
How'd you end up in Albertville, France?
It's a crazy. I mean, it's a good question. It's a crazy kind of story. I was really lucky, and. Some people, you can think it's destiny or whatever. I don't know, but I just feel some of it's just luck, just being in the right place at the right time. I mean, a lot of you can create. We've discussed this before. I remember discussing this with you guys like ages ago. But you can, if you work hard and you take care of the details and you show up and you're really mindful about the thing, start to finish, you're really doing the business on the sharp end. You're going to create a lot of your own luck, right? For sure, the harder you work, the luckier you get. No one will ever tell me, you can't put your finger on that, but no one will ever tell me that's not true. No one will ever be able to convince me that's not true. But I was just lucky. I got lucky and then I took that luck and I ran with it like I stole it. Like I ran with that like I stole it, and I would never relinquish, because I felt so fortunate until really until like 2 weeks ago. And I'm going to still be with Olivia, of course. And then some other athletes. I'm going to do some consulting with the Winter Sports Club and whatever. But
so how do you get from New Jersey up to Killington? Because that's where it really started to unfold for you.
Yeah, sort of. So we're in New Jersey, and we would ski. It's up at Stratton a little bit, and I loved it. I like from the beginning. I just loved to do this. I mean,
how old were you when would you go with your dad? Yeah,
I would go with my dad and my brother and sister, but I was just far more keen than they were right from the beginning. and so, just so funny. I remember I had my dad was pretty cheap, so I had wood skis, and the ski technology was way better than what I'm about to tell you. But I had wood skis with screw-in edges and these bear trap bindings, and I had leather lace-up boots. This wasn't like in the 1960s or the 50s, but my dad was too cheap, so that's what he got me. Or that's what we had. I don't know, sitting around. So I remember the spring, we were at Stratton in the spring, and my skis were sucking again, they wouldn't glide. And at night, I'm rubbing on the silver wax, just trying to go faster. But it was Clister, some random silver wax. I remember because my dad would be way ahead of me because he had he had a sweet setup. And so anyway, and then I got.
Wait a minute! He spent all the money on his setup, and he gave you some wooden shit. Wooden shoes to go skiing.
No,
Here you go,
terrible.
kid.
It was crazy, and whatever. And so I'm sort of proud that I had to actually ski in leather lace-up boots, but I'm not that old. So then, whatever. And then, but I was always really keen. And then I went ski as much as I could with any family that would, if my dad wasn't going up, then I'd go ski with our friends or whatever. So I was into it. And then we moved to the west to Albuquerque, New Mexico. And for a few years, my dad started a building business there. And then my parents split, and my mom moved back to the East Coast. And I moved back with her. And the dean of my high school, he was the assistant coach of the Alpine race team. And, So let me just go back. So in middle school, when we lived in Albuquerque, we had a place, a small place up in Durango, Colorado, in Purgatory Ski Resort. And that was the same thing. I would be the first one up. I'd be out the door. I wouldn't wait for anyone. They'd have to go find me on the hill because I didn't want to wait till 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock. I was just into it. I had watched all the TV shows and magazines. I was just into it, just crazy into it. And then, I went to a ski camp here in Steamboat in 7th grade. It's a million years ago, and learned to do flips into the water, into the water jump. And I was pretty good acrobat. I was super into trampoline at the time. So it was a kind of a natural sport for me to be part of, because Freestyle Moguls has an inverted aerial component. So that was really good for me. So then we moved back east. I moved back with my mom, and then high school, and met the dean of the high school, who was assistant coach of the Alpine team. Then he had a house in Killington, and he and his family took me to Killington because he knew I was out of my mind about skiing. And then I ended up going to Killington. I asked him, can I join the Killington program? He's like, yeah, because my parents were split. So he was kind of like a surrogate father for me, and subsequently the best man in our wedding. And I talk to him all the time. Great guy. And so I went and skied to Killington. I went to the mountain school, and then I made the national team from there. But I was just lucky that my mom happened to move to the part of Connecticut with that high school, with Paul Holmes, with that guy that had a house in Killington. That was, that had nothing to do with me driving it or, working hard. That was just pure luck. And yeah, I mean, that just talking about it today after so many years humbles me,
Yeah.
It really does.
Yeah.
What was your first, through that story, you're skiing, you're in Killington. What was your first piece of evidence that showed that you should pursue this? You were already pursuing it because you had a passion for it, but that you should go to that next level. Where was the first event or incident or experience?
That's a good question. I think that I felt like I was getting better than everyone else at a faster rate. I felt like I was like, they were better than me, but at my rate of improvement, they were improving kind of slowly. And I was like, shoop, and I felt that. And I felt like, yeah, I think that my effort level was there. And that was sort of like the beginning of that momentum, I would say. And just like my improvement rate was really good. And I was good jumper, good at inverted aerials and the acrobatic side. That came to me quite naturally. So the skiing part, took me a while to catch up. But I think that was the moment.
What was it about the moguls that you love besides that they're just like, you can just tear through those, which I know
we've seen you.
Yeah, which I've seen you do many times, but I know you love that wild speed.
I just think it looks cool. I just think it looks badass when someone's just shredding down the moguls, like down the line, and they've got good absorption. I just think it looks cool. So I was like, yeah, that looks super cool. I just want to do that really, really well. I want to do that at the Olympic Games.
I was giggling this morning, early in the morning, as I was, writing the intro, and I was, doing some searches on you, just like, I've never even searched on him. Let's see what comes up. And there's a picture of you in Google Images, and this is you like in your heyday, and
it's the white suit.
Yeah, I think you got like a white suit on, and you're on the hill, and you're just shredding it. It looks in this picture, but like no helmet, headband. You got like the Dayglow orange and the white suit on and everything. And I'm just like, oh my God, you were 100% just like playing that role, and so basic. Like I can't imagine that they would go out on the hill like that with those moguls without a helmet these days.
No, I mean, no one doesn't wear a helmet anymore. I wear a helmet, when I ski. Yeah, it's funny because I resisted for so long. When we were living in Whistler, when Jess and I were living in Whistler, the Whistler Blackcomb, the terrain's gnarly there. I wasn't wearing a helmet then. This is just a few years ago. Like skiing stuff, you just absolutely cannot fall. If you fall, you're really going to get like beat up or dead. Like maybe not dead, maybe, but certainly like
get
plenty
dead.
faster. Like you get dead. And like, yeah, we're even wearing a helmet then. It's like insane. But yeah, no, you have to wear a helmet, of course, now. Because the speeds are really, really high and the jumps are more difficult and the whole thing. But yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to ask for, similar to BJ's question about, like taking it to the next level. When was do you remember kind of that first time frame where the Olympics were like something you were like, oh, hell yeah, I'm going to go for that?
I just remember the year I made the U.S. team, I was just like on a mission. I just can't, like that's the way I would describe it. I was just on a mission. And I remember going to that Nationals in Winter Park, Colorado, at National Championships. And I know if I ski well there, I can get a spot on the U.S. ski team. I just remember not being intimidated by those guys. Like a lot of people are like, oh, they're so, and I just remember thinking like, these guys are not that good. And that maybe sounds egotistical, but I'm just being honest with you. Like I just felt like, oh, those guys aren't that good. I can beat those guys, and I don't know.
And you did.
I did, and yeah, and that was sort of the beginning. And it's not that I didn't think that I had a lot of work to do. I had a lot of work to do. I just thought that the relative level, and that I think the biggest thing is what I saw when those guys say those guys would come to Killington and train or whatever. I never thought like these guys don't look like, I think that they're just like regular people, and that I can just keep improving, and as long as I stay hungry and I don't know, So.
And returning to the Olympics as a coach so many years later, was that ever anything in your vision like that? Did you ever feel like I'm going to come back to the Olympics, like either as an athlete or like, did you ever feel that pull, like you weren't done yet? Whether you knew, like you didn't know what was coming, but did you ever, when you left Albertville, when you left those Olympics, like did you ever feel like you weren't done yet?
Not really. I think as my career went on, I kind of knew when to say when. I knew that I was sort of past my prime. And so there was, because that was after 92, that's when they did because there's an Olympics every 2 years now. It's like summer, winter, summer, winter, summer, winter. So it went 92, then it went 94. So they had the winter game athletes got the benefit of having 2 Olympics within, after 2 years, like went 92 in Albertville and went 94 in Lillehammer, Norway. Mm-hmm. So, but I was just like, I think I'm done, skiing on the World Cup. I think I'm probably past my prime. And also the Pro Tour started up at that time, and there was money to be made, and there were sponsors, like my sponsors from the World Cup, saying, well, if you go ski the Pro Tour, we can create this pro team, and and there was less restrictions financially at that time. Now there's very few restrictions on World Cup, but that was sort of the time where there were still some restrictions financially about signing different contracts, et cetera. So the Pro Tour was a good segue for me to get so I could kind of keep living the mogul skiing fantasy a little bit, but
yeah. And I bet there was a little bit of fanfare there too.
Yeah, it was sweet. It was
I'm sure you hated that.
Yeah, I hated that. Yeah. Yeah. You know me, huh? You know me well. So, but when I coached, I never coached because I felt like I had unfinished business or because or like I was like still like a wannabe or felt like I hadn't done enough as an athlete. Like when I was skiing, I remember thinking someday I would love to coach. I remember thinking that. And even when I was like a little kid, in 8th grade, 9th grade, coming out to ski camp here in Steamboat, like I would sort of like junior coach. And I just liked to coach, and I just liked to give back. And so the biggest, I think the biggest reason I've coached, and certainly more recently with this U15 group, these 13, 14-year-old kids, is because you just want to give back to youth. And that, to serve youth to me has been, really, really, really nice and, sort of really an honor. I mean, just something I just love to do. I've told this to our U15 parents and athletes a lot. Last year, we had a great assistant coach for U15, and I was, director of the program here in Steamboat, plus, head coach of U15. A great assistant coach, guy I've known for a long time. He's like my age and really knowledgeable and really passionate. But just the group of kids was amazing. And I said, all of my years coaching, it was one of my favorite years ever. Like, including like right up there with coaching those Olympic teams and those Olympic years. Like, I love coaching those kids. So, and you just meet each kid, you provide the goal is always, for me, is to provide a really, really high level, kind of run it like a little mini national team, right? With like really a good attention to detail, which is really important to me. And then the kids that don't want to be on the national team, there's plenty of kids in that U15 group that don't want to be on the national team, but you just meet them where they are. But they're getting all this trickle-down effect from the top, right? From where I'm providing, this kid wants to be on the U.S. team, or we have one kid who has got Swedish citizenship. His mom's Swedish, so he may ski for Sweden. We don't know, but it's still early. But yeah, like he wants to be on the national team. So I'm like coaching him at this level, and these other kids are getting all this, but I'm meeting them where they are, like where their goals are. It's awesome. It's awesome.
Have you coached? Can you recall coaching an athlete up? Coaching them up from what their abilities are, but then with the coaching and information, maybe it's one of the people you're working with in the U15 or have worked, and they just like glom on to every word you say, and they get to the point where they have taken themselves well beyond probably what their parents thought was possible.
Yeah. So that's a really good question. I think that's, as coaches, that's where the rubber hits the road, because you can you can't just wait for the next Michaela Schifrin or Lindsey Vaughn or Bodie Miller to just drop into your program or drop on your lap and go, well, I created Michaela Schifrin. Or, I mean, it's like, and it's not that it hasn't taken a lot of work to get her to where she is. She's done a lot of work, and they've done a lot. They paid a lot of attention to detail. Don't get me wrong. That said, it's the athletes that are, just good, but you're like, you're with them, you're like eye to eye, you're just doing it every day, and you get them to like far, way past what they expected, what you expected. And it's not like a coach, you're like, oh yeah, well, this is all gonna work out. Like, you don't always know it's gonna work out, but you just put your head down, you put your blinders on, you don't worry about, you eliminate all that sort of self-doubt or that, well, what if? Like, you can't do that. You just have to have that freaking narrow road, that narrow corridor, and just put your head down, put all the doubts away, and just grind it every day. But yeah, I've done that with a number of athletes, and that is like unbelievably gratifying. Mm-hmm. Unbelievably gratifying. Like, for instance, this U15 kid, he's actually should be in U13, but we moved him up. He's young, he's okay athletic, and he's at the top of the water jump 2 weeks ago. Like, for 15 minutes, won't do backflip. Like, properly scared. That's his world, right? This kid's 12 years old, 13. It's his world. Like, it's coming down, like, I'm gonna die if I do this. And I'm coaching him, and I'm like, you got it, no problem, and he won't go, he's like freaking out. So then that kid that has Swedish citizenship goes up there. He's a really nice, super dynamic kid, goes up there and he's coaching him. And then the other kids, and then all 10 kids, we have 11 kids in that group during each session in the summer. All 11 kids are up there cheering this kid on, like peer pressuring him to go. Just do it. You can do it. You can do it. You can do it. He goes, does backflip. It's like, you want to talk about bravery? Like, that kid's 13 years old. That's his like life at that moment. No, you know what I'm saying? He's going to literally, he thinks he's going to die, even though he's not. So awesome to see that bravery and see a kid. And then over time, it's just day after day after day, we forced him to do it, forced him to do it. After a while, he'd just step up, boom, and go. He didn't take 15 minutes. He didn't take 10 minutes or 5 minutes. He'd take 10 seconds and go. It was awesome. So, that happens at young ages. It can happen in adulthood,
Mm-hmm. Well, that's
putting yourself in those unbelievably uncomfortable situations where you're just think you're going to die, right? I'm sure that happens in Ironman all the time. Like, I can't do it, or I'm going to, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's that
really imagine.
Fear just is so paralyzing. It just you get paralyzed. You can't move. You can't get out of your own way. And so that's so amazing that all those kids, and that they have a coach to kind of urge them along. But back to something we wanted to talk about was taking score too soon. If that kid had been up there and was like, I can't do this, I'm not going to do this, everybody, kind of shied away from him because they didn't want to, kind of urge him to move on. Like, he would have stopped at that moment potentially, and then turned around, got back off, and never approached skiing again. So it's in these moments, and that's just one example. You just shared one beautiful example. And we as adults experience these daily, maybe not to that extreme at the top of a slalom, but we experience them daily in the choices that we make, the food choices we make, the getting in a car and turning left when we should be going right. There's many things that are so small that are just second nature to us right now. But in those moments that kid was up there, it's that's the pivotal moment where where the rubber meets the road. We face the fear. We have a choice. We either move forward or we move backwards. And it's that if you're not actively there to make that decision, you're going to default to what's comfortable. And for most of us, it's going to be fear and safe. Let's get
dude. That is to me as a human being, but as an athlete, and a coach. I mean, that was really gratifying for me to see him do that. But like, that is like what it's about. When you conquer that stuff, that is like those are like, that was awesome that I was able to do that, right? That's like what it's about. That's what sort of drives me like every day, you know? Just to like, you know, conquer some of that fear, or just be like, I think something that I would say I've been pretty good at is whatever, as a coach or as an athlete, is I'm pretty comfortable being uncomfortable. You know, I'm just like, I like to be in uncomfortable situations. I'm like in a foreign country and I'm trying to speak the language and just put myself out there. You know, I think that's really, really important. But to go back to, what did you say? Keeping score or taking score too early. I think, I think that if you just, again, I think it comes down to passion, or maybe not. I think that if you're just really focused on the process, then all of the results and the PB, you know, personal bests or personal records or world records or whatever are just a byproduct of the process. So just stick with the process, enjoy the process, you know, and enjoy not enjoying the process at times, you know?
Yeah.
and then, you know.
The more that you stand up to something that's scary and you do it, or you know, I guess that's uncomfortableness as well, like, or do something that's uncomfortable, the more you do it, it doesn't, I mean, maybe it gets a little less uncomfortable, I don't know, but it gets easier to do it anyway. You know?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
for sure, it gets easier,
It gets easier to do it anyway. Even though it's scary, it gets easier to do it. And you've got to start with whenever that next time that fear is right in your face.
Yeah. And that stuff builds you up, like, if, like in the athletic sense, it builds you up, like you conquer that fear. So it builds you up physically. You're like, oh, I can run or ride or swim that amount. I can do that. And then that builds you up sort of emotionally. It builds you up mentally. This whole thing just has this sort of like, this effect, this positive effect, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, that's like, it's like the best.
So as we're starting to come to the end of our conversation,
what? I thought it's only been like 20 minutes.
I know, isn't it crazy?
So much more to cover.
I know. Well, we'll have you back on maybe, or we'll just come to Steamboat and get together. My God, it's been a long time since we've seen you.
It'd be awesome. Love to see you guys.
You've just taken a totally different direction in your professional life. With the exception of the athlete or whatever athletes you work with, moving forward, primarily though, you're not coaching anymore. I mean, and this is decades, right? Have you been skiing for what, 5 decades? Like, I think it's more like 9 decades. Those skis that you were on, those wooden skis were brand freaking new.
They were in the 40s.
You're lying about your age. No, I mean, but like four decades, I mean, 5 decades, 4 decades, like you've been in this, and that's going to be kind of scary, right? You're stepping into the unknown. Like, who are you without all that?
That's sort of like being comfortable, being uncomfortable. It's like, there's so many, I don't know. There's always someone inspirational to find or someone to learn from or something, to learn. And, but I'm definitely a rookie and I'm a little like scrambly as far as what I don't know, like you were saying about technology and things things you have to ignore and not use and that are not important. I'm not sure what that is currently yet in real estate because there's a lot of stuff out there and some stuff is really imperative and some stuff is not, but I'm not sure of the stuff that's not. So I've got to figure that out. But yeah, no, I was in real estate. That's an interesting thing too, actually, because when I left the national team for Canada after the 2006 games in Torino, I quit coaching and I was never going to coach again. Like never. And then I got into real estate and I really enjoyed it. I loved the challenge. It was fun and to help people find homes. And because real estate's been really good to me in this town and just the home ownership thing. I don't know why I dig it so much, but, and then I got kind of lured, like when the economy went soft, I sort of like, and And I got lured back into coaching, and that's when Jess and I moved to Whistler, which was one of my most amazing coaching career chunks of my coaching. That 4 years with the Canadian Sport Institute, there were so many knowledgeable people that I got to handpick my athletes, which was awesome, and then based on their work ethic, pretty much, and talent, but more work ethic, which was awesome. That was a little dream come true.
Did that throw a wrench into their program?
That's amazing.
No, that was amazing. No, that's what they wanted me to do. And then, but then there were all these people that were involved in different sports that the Canadian Sport Institute supports, and they were just this wealth of knowledge. I could just go from person to person and go to all these different coaching seminars and learn all this stuff, and it was just. That was probably some of my most favorite years of coaching, and living in British Columbia and mountain biking and skiing and that whole province.
And it seems like that organization is similar to like what our audience would know as like the USAT, which is United States Triathlon, where they have a development program. Like younger, so the up and coming, like they're developing these younger
swimmers
athletes
and runners,
quote unquote, like grooming them for representation.
That's exactly what it was. Yeah, sweet.
Amazing.
I'm glad that triathlon has something like that, and that's great. Yeah, that's exactly what it was. Yeah, and I love coaching that level, and I'm still really close with one of those athletes who was 4th at World Championships this past year. But yeah, I'll definitely miss skiing. I'll miss the athletes. I'll miss those guys a ton. And I'm still in touch with them, and I will be a lot, I suspect. But it's just time. It's just time,
Yeah.
It's just time. I want to, And if I'm going to run a program, it's got to be like really super high. It's got to feel really high level, and it's really important for me that the athletes, whether they're like that U13 kid or the kid that's going to want to make the national ski team, that they're really getting the best stuff. That's, that's number one to me. Like if you had kids and you brought them to me for me to coach them, like I have to honor that relationship with like those kids are going to come home going, I got really, really good stuff today. That guy really knows his stuff, and he's really paying attention to the new, to the details. He's like, yeah. And there's no doubt when you're doing that, like with these U15 athletes, there's no doubt that when the coaches are doing that, you just create this bond and this team energy. That's it's like the best. So. But anyway, moving on to real estate. Yeah, I'm like totally stoked to be like doing this.
It sounds like it's a good time, but there's also you never know, right? Like you just never know where life is going to take you. You never know. And just for the record, if we were to give you our kids, it wouldn't be for coaching. It would be to raise them. Just go live with. So you know us. Somehow we got these kids. Got to give them to Bobby to raise them.
What Enzo says about that?
Yeah. So you have a son, Enzo, and BJ just shared with me a video of him like in the park on his bike.
The pump track?
Yeah, the pump track. So he looks like he's following his dad's legacy pretty well. Is he a little daredevil? Is he? He's maybe like a little more. I asked my aunt that because I can't really remember what I was like at that age, but I asked my aunt that. She said, you were more of a daredevil, but I don't know. I think he's maybe slightly measured, but he's definitely like, he's a risk taker for sure. Like he's a risk taker, and he's like, pretty like forward kind of kid. And he likes to be active. Like he loves the reps, and I love the reps. Anything I'm doing, I could throw the Frisbee on the beach with you forever. Just because I'm like, how can I get it to BJ? Right hand's going right to his right hand. It's going to go his left hand. Like an hour and a half later, you'll be like, okay, enough. I'm like, one more. See, this is what I was talking about earlier with riding motorcycles, racing bikes, like whatever it is that you do, you go full boat.
Repetition.
Yeah, you love the reps. Beach loves the reps too.
I love the reps. I love the loops and the reps, like
right,
over and over and over and over and over.
Right,
over.
Like you're like romantic about that, right?
Yeah,
you're just like, this is awesome.
This is so
like
cool.
I wouldn't want to be doing anything else but this right now, right?
Yes.
Nice.
Yeah.
So you're still, and you're still shredding it on the hill. Told you I was watching some YouTube videos with you and Deb Armstrong, and you guys are going down this legit slope, moguls, and you're filming her, and I can see your shadow. You're on the same moguls that she's on. You've got your poles tucked under your arm, and you're filming her. Like, I don't know how you stayed upright. Like, you're still pretty legit out there, dude.
Not bad for an old guy.
Yeah.
I'm not washed up, but all right for an old guy.
Do you get competitive at all out there when you're out there having fun? You don't?
No.
Not even tiny bit?
Not even a little bit?
Not really. I mean, like we'll be like with our athletes, and we'll duel a little bit. Like side by side, but not really, no. But I like to ski, I like to give her, for sure, and shred when the conditions are right, yeah. I mean, but I'm not no, not really. I like to ski well. I mean, I'm not I don't want to not ski well. If I'm constantly working on my stuff. It's like with Deb, when we get done shooting those videos, because she's really great alpine racer, and I take still quite. Working on my technique, on the groomed slopes, And I'm like, Deb, go down there and watch me and coach me. Freaking old man. I'm still telling her to go and coach me. And then my mother-in-law was on the national ski team for some period of time. And she's been teaching ski school in Steamboat for almost 50 years. And so when we go skiing as a family, on Christmas or whatever, I'm like, Nancy, go down and watch me. It's ridiculous. Totally ridiculous, And then, Jess's uncle skied at the Olympics in '68 in Grenoble, and so sort of a skiing family. Jess was an NCAA cross-country skier, and so it's sort of this skiing family. So that's what we do.
Nice.
It's what we love. It's what we do on Thanksgiving and Christmas, and, just because it's yeah.
And Steamboat's just the perfect community for that.
Yeah.
It seems like
we're lucky.
it.
Yeah, and Enzo, who's your son, he's growing up in a great place, and sounds like he's got some good athletic genes in his DNA.
We'll see. Yeah, I think so.
If he wants to swim, bike, and run, you can send him out.
I will. Trust me.
SoCal.
Trust me. I'd go to the experts. I'd go right to the experts. I get it.
So what are you excited about now? What are you excited about?
I'm excited to raise my son and spend time with him. It's so fun. Every moment is a teaching moment for both of us. I can teach him things. He can teach me things. When we go out and bounce trampoline out of the water jumps, he bounces and he loves it. And I've taught him some stuff. Then I've had other athletes kind of teach him some stuff. And then we take turns. And then when I bounce, I'm like, Enzo, coach me. Who asks a 4-year-old to coach them? Nobody. He's not even 4. He's going to be 4 this weekend. But this is even last summer. But who asked a 2.5 or a 3.5-year-old to coach them? But I thought that was kind of brilliant. And so you just have this little, and he's like, oh, Dad, well, Pop, do this with your arms, or do spinner, so I'll do 360 or whatever. But it's so cool, and that sort of empowers him, right?
I like this technique. Yeah.
It sort of came to me. I'm pretty creative about that kind of stuff anyway, but I just have him coach me.
Right.
And it's so funny.
Well, so he's learning how to give feedback.
Yeah. Yeah. And then he's like, okay, coach me. So he becomes open-minded as well. And I didn't do that so then I could coach him at all. But it was just, it's natural on tramp. Oh, well, try to do 360. Keep your body straight, or keep your eyes up, or, whatever. And then it's just cool. So that's what I'm really most excited about in my life, and finding that time also with Jess, with my wife Jess, and making sure that we keep that our relationship really good as well. I think what was it, Monday, she got out of school. She teaches school, and she got out, and I left work early, and we went and rode for an hour and 15 minutes. We were up on Emerald Mountain, our mountain bikes, and then boom, she went to pick Enzo up. I rode a little longer, so just to find that a little more balance will be really nice, and to get good at something I'm not good at right now. Get good at real estate.
Nice. Oh, you're gonna kill it.
We'll see. I certainly have goals and put my head down for sure. So
yeah, I mean, all that athlete discipline can translate to whatever it is that you're pursuing.
Yeah, I created a whole goal sheet. I'm ready to go.
Do you have your 12-page mission statement?
It is called the mission, by the way. I stole that from mine and Olivia's mission. It is called the mission, but it's not 12 pages. I don't think it should be. Not with ADD. I'd be like 12 pages. I got to read over that every day. Oh my God, not be good.
Can you share one goal with us before we wrap it up?
My real estate goals?
Yeah.
A real estate goal?
A goal, yeah.
It's gonna sound kind of real estate-y.
Or a goal that you have in life. It's gonna sound real estate-y.
It's gonna be something really profound. Just be have a goal and just be a better human being every day. Just be cognizant of who you are every day. I don't know. How's that sound?
I think that's a pretty good goal.
Yeah. Yeah, because like I don't have to be world champion anymore. That's really nice.
Yeah.
Like, your goal isn't to be world champion. That's really nice. Nice to have that lift off your shoulders over time, So it's not like you can sweat the details, but you don't have to sweat the details, So yeah.
Awesome.
Thank you guys so much. I love you guys. It's really nice to see your faces and to connect with you. And we'll be down in your neck of the woods surfing soon enough as well. Oceanside or whatever, right around your guys' neck of the woods. So
I like that plan. That's my goal. Is to have the Aldighieris come here.
I want to play Frisbee with you for 12 hours.
Dude, be like, no, he's coming to play Frisbee or whatever.
Oh my God, that would be the truth though. I've seen you two go after it before.
Yeah.
But thank you so much, Bobby. Appreciate all the wisdom and experience that you shared with us. And we're so good to see you.
My pleasure. Same. Good to see you guys too.